And the Canadian approach remains one of confidence based in strength.
Chrystia Freeland addressing the chaotic political backdrop to this week's NAFTA talks. Donald Trump promising to bring back middle-class American jobs and prosperity, in part by fixing NAFTA. The consensus is he needs to get that done now more than ever. There's been near unanimous condemnation of his approach to white nationalism in the wake of Charlottesville. He appears to be bleeding support from within his own party. Legislative success has eluded him, especially on another core election promise, repealing Obamacare. And members of his own party have called him unstable. So how vulnerable is Donald Trump right now, and how much leverage does that give Canada's NAFTA team to get what they want from the table? Here's part of that wish list once again. Canada aiming to add chapters on labor and environmental standards, to remove the provision that allows foreign investors to take governments to court. They want to say goodbye to Buy America. And they want to keep our dairy and poultry industries out of this agreement, but preserve the mechanism that helps settle disputes, anti-dumping and countervailing duties, for example. We're back with more from the Sunday Scrum. Susan Riley, John Ibbitson are in Ottawa, and Alex Panetta of the Canadian Press joins me from Washington. Susan, let's talk about that ultimate moment of drama, Donald Trump getting up and walking away. How likely do you think that is?
Getting up and walking away from NAFTA?
Yeah.
I think it's likely that he may threaten it if he focuses attention for 2 seconds on the deal. It's equally likely, it's not improbable, that he may quit. And it's been mooted in the United States. Alex may have a better view of how realistic that is, but it wouldn't surprise me at all. So I would expect...
So if you were the Canadians, would you draw this out?
Yes, I would say the longer you can draw it out, the better our chances are. This may be seen as a heresy in some circles, but John will quickly express his opinion if it is a heresy.
Excellent.
Maybe they should just give up on Chapter 19. Chapter 19, which mostly relates to softwood lumber, which establishes these, multinational panels that regulate disputes and that has, in fact, favored Canadian arguments often. We don't have free trade in softwood lumber. We haven't had it since 1984 when this problem first arose. We have got a series of, Americans imposing, export tariffs and countervailing duties and quotas, and the two sides sort of managing. Here's the sacrifice Canada's industry is prepared to make. The fact remains, the U.S. needs our softwood. Canadian softwood, especially from BC, is of better quality often than the American product. I'm not sure that would be a huge sacrifice for us.
Okay, well, John, can you rely on the fact that so many Americans need our stuff that we're going to win?
Susan knows me well. I couldn't disagree more. Look, here's the most important thing. We should stop obsessing over softwood. It's an important part of the trade arrangement between the two countries, but by no means is it overwhelming. It's nothing like automobiles or manufactured, even agriculture. This is an incredibly large, complex trading relationship that involves billions of dollars crossing the border each way every single day. And while softwood is a thorn in the side, that's all it is, a thorn in the side. I wouldn't.
John, that's a very Ontario-centric view.
It also happens to be a realistic view in terms of the overall gross domestic product of Canada. So no, don't walk away from Chapter 19. Hang on to it. Let softwood play its. You know how softwood's going to end? Softwood's going to end the way it ends all the time. We cut the Americans a check and they give us another 10 years. Did it happen in 2006? It'll happen again. So now, as to whether Donald Trump is going to quit in 4 months' time, I wouldn't base our negotiating strategy on that one bit. I think you just carry on, hope that the people who are handling the file are reasonable. They tend to be. The president himself is inconsistent on good days, incoherent on bad days, and positively dangerous on the weekends. But there's nothing that you can do in terms of negotiating the agreement other than negotiate the agreement and hope that you get Donald Trump on one of his least worst days.
Okay, Alexander, let me ask you this. Let's go back to the original question. He decides to walk away. What's the plan?
Okay, so let's tackle this in two pieces. Number one, will he threaten to walk away? Number two, what's the plan? Number one, will he threaten to walk away? Of course he'll threaten to walk away. Why wouldn't he? I would threaten to walk away if I were him. That's his best card. He's got, let's say he's holding 3 cards. Card number one, status quo, that everyone's happy with. Card number two, a terrible deal that harms the United States and that everyone agrees to. Card number 3, I scare everyone by threatening to walk away. Why wouldn't he not play that third card? And he will play it at some point in the negotiations. Talking to a lobbyist here at the negotiations a couple days ago who was saying almost 100%. There's going to be a big moment of drama. And actually, a former deputy U.S. trade czar under Barack Obama said the biggest mistake Donald Trump's made so far is he threatened to walk away in April. He played his best card 4 months before the poker game. And what ended up happening is everyone on Capitol Hill freaked out. The industries lost their minds, and the Canadians got an opportunity, and the Mexicans got an opportunity to see how Washington would react if that ultimate threat is ever leveled. And what they saw, I think they liked. And what it did is it gave us an opportunity to prepare a response. Yeah. And that's the second piece of this. I saw a milling about the convention site, some Canadian officials handing out sheets of paper, fact sheets with statistics on trade balances. And I said to myself, oh, hey, that looks a little bit like an election-style tactic, you know, at a campaign rally, people passing out information sheets. And a light bulb went off. I said, wait a second now. I'd been hearing for a while about this, you know, Donald Trump war room set up within the Prime Minister's office. I think it had been first reported in January that they were setting up this kind of thing. And it strikes me that I'm watching its operations for the first time. I've actually seen it with my eyes. And so I started asking around, and I've actually, you know, gone back to some notes and just put together a story about what the Canadian government is doing to prepare. So approximately 8 people work in the Prime Minister's office on the Canada-U.S. file all the time. And they're not all in the Prime Minister's office, but the unit is located there. And they call it the Canada-U.S. unit. Someone calls it a tiger team. You can call it a war room, but they don't really like that term. And it includes 2 former trade officials, a writer, Michael Dentant, Chrystia Freeland, Foreign Affairs Minister, and it's run by Brian Clow. And Brian Clow's, the greatest quality he brings to the table, apparently, is he ran the Liberal War Room in 2015. He was trained by Warren Kinsella in war rooms in Ontario politics. And apparently, his biggest attribute here is he stays really calm while putting out a fire. And he doesn't overreact and doesn't encourage people to lose their heads, right? And so what this operation is doing is multiple things that resemble a political campaign. Number 1, it's gathering data. And so it's going out and picking up the opinions of a whole bunch of members of Congress. Every time we write a story quoting someone with an opinion on something having to do with NAFTA, into the database it goes. And so that they can then, like, you know, figure out, okay, do we deploy resource X to talk to this person because he agrees with us on this file, et cetera, et cetera. Another thing it does is it coordinates outreach. So we've been seeing it happen before our very eyes. Over the last few months, all these trips that the Prime Minister and cabinet ministers are taking around the United States is not just to make friends. It's to prepare a rapid response, which is another thing a campaign does. And so this rapid response would work the following way. So if Trump threatens to pull out of NAFTA, and it appears the threat is serious, what the Canadian government would do is something to the effect of, okay, Marc Garneau, you went to Florida, you spoke with this senator. Can you please call this senator and ask him to call this person he knows in the White House? Official in the Prime Minister's office, you go speak to this person and put pressure on this person in Washington. So what you're doing is you're deploying a bunch of resources. I've heard people say the Canadians can actually take this a step farther and work with the Mexicans on this, because Mexico has a lot of political and economic clout in the southern United States, southwestern particularly, whereas Canada has got a lot of clout in the north. So what you do is you work together and create this pincher formation if this ever happens. So this is essentially what's going on.
Okay, this is all assuming that Donald Trump is a rational actor and open to pressure. John, what do you think?
Well, I think I've already expressed what I think. Donald Trump is unqualified to be president to start with, and he has an erratic and narcissistic personality. So the danger is always that he may listen to reason on good days, but on Thursday he may tweet to his base. Now, he is steadily losing the most populist nationalist people on his team, like Steve Bannon, who left a few days ago. And he is increasingly surrounded with competence. You know, very conservative, often highly military, Wall Street type of competence, but at least competence. So you like to believe that when the NAFTA negotiations reach a critical point, his advisors will surround him in the Oval Office and say, look, this is the best deal we can get. We should agree to concede to the Canadians on this. We've already got this big win from Mexico. This is a deal you should take out and sell as a win. But we've seen how Donald Trump works selling deals on health care We've seen how well he's working right now in trying to craft a tax cut package, which is to say not very well at all. Can he be convinced on NAFTA? And once he's convinced, can he sell it to Congress? Well, the track record right now is not encouraging.
All right. We're going to leave that for now. Alex, I want to thank you for joining us today. Susan, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, it's such a mind-breakingly cumbersome, complicated issue.
Yeah.
I wish it would just leave the political arena, just drift off into the back rooms with the very competent bureaucrats. Our team is probably more competent, perhaps certainly more engaged than the American team, and get back to us in a year.
And also, one thing to note, even if Donald Trump walks away from NAFTA, there is still a NAFTA implementation bill that exists in the United States Congress, and the president cannot wave it away with a magic wand. You would end up having court fights over it. So he can't really walk away by himself.
So he can't walk away by himself. So how long could it possibly take? Could it take, for example, another 3.5 years?
So what would possibly happen if the president really did walk away? From conversations I've had with lawyers and papers that I've read, what would end up happening is he would say, okay, NAFTA's over, and the United States would withdraw from NAFTA. There would be no more international agreement called NAFTA. But you would have as a United States piece of legislation, a law that exists in the United States that does everything that NAFTA says. So then, what would happen afterwards is I don't think you would see Congress get rid of it. The president would try then to increase some tariff schedules, which he could try to do and claim his authority under NAFTA. And ultimately, it would end up in court. And you would have people happy with the status quo suing the United States president, saying you didn't have the authority to do this without us, and it would go back and forth. And a very relevant case to look at is the Youngstown Steel case, over a half century ago, which separated sort of the powers of the presidency versus the Congress and what one could do and what the other can do. Long story short, it's very complicated, and the Canadian PMO unit I wrote about would like to avoid things ever getting that far.
Yeah, because of the economic uncertainty. It would be crazy for business investment.
Yeah.